Yeah, hi, I'm Julian Elliott. I'm based in Melbourne. I lead an organisation called the Future Evidence Foundation. So we do a lot of work in trying to improve the way that we use research in making decisions throughout society. When people are trying to make sense of research and use research in the decision making, there's essentially kind of really quick and dirty ways of doing that. So what I sometimes call kind of science by Twitter, which is basically like, I'm going to quickly kind of look around the web or at various places and try and find a few studies so I can try and understand what is going on in that particular field. Now, we know from lots of research that actually a deeply flawed process. Not only does it miss a lot of studies, but also you have a systematic bias. The studies float to the top and get noticed when they have really dramatic results, but they may not be the actual full body of research. And so when we do that, we're actually making fundamental flaws in the way that we use research in our decisions. It's a very significant problem in the way that we use research at the moment. And so over many decades, researchers from around the world have tried to take a much more rigorous, a more scientific approach to kind of making sense of research and using it for our decisions. And that's a process called systematic review. So it is a very detailed, very methodologically rigorous process to get what I call a kind of high fidelity. Essentially, it's about accuracy. It's about giving us a report that summarizes research in a particular area that can we have real trust in, real faith that this is a rigorous assessment of what that research says and minimizes the amount of bias or opinion in that. Those reports have been around for decades. The problem has been that they're incredibly time and resource intensive and can't keep up to date with this incredible speed at which science moves. And so until recently, we had this terrible trade-off. For anyone in society, we essentially had kind of quick and dirty, give us some idea about the latest research, but I can't trust it. Or I get these reports that I can trust, but I know that they're not up to date with the latest research. So neither form of summary of research is actually giving me what I want, which is give me the information so I can understand what the research currently says. So living systematic reviews essentially tries to break that terrible trade-off and create summaries of scientific research that are both very rigorous, so we can trust them, but also they're kept constantly up to date. So as soon as a new study is published, it's incorporated into that summary, and then that summary remains always up to date. So I can go to it at any time and I know this is both rigorous and trustworthy, and it's up to date with the latest science. So it's giving me the best possible understanding of what the science is saying on any topic. So we've been doing this living systematic review work now for about a decade. And I think that the dissemination is very different. So instead of having these kind of, to be honest, it might be like once every 5 years. This is the kind of traditional model. I mean, it's kind of insane. Science never sleeps. It's constantly pushing out new information. And yet we've had these summaries that we're only updating once every 5 years. I mean, that to me is a tragedy. So when you move then to a living systematic review, it's very much about what's new. Just alert me to the significant things that have changed since your last in contact or your last kind of pushing out that information. So it's a much more dynamic process. We've done a number of studies that have shown that the people who use research engage much more deeply with living reviews than they do with static reviews. You get much better uptake, much better intention to use, much better use of the evidence, and ultimately, in some examples, we've shown that actually improve patient outcomes. What we've learned, particularly in more recent years, is that even when we started this journey, we were very focused on what we would call the evidence product. Like, can we create these summaries of research that are better because they combine the two attributes of being trustworthy and up to date? But in more recent years, what we've discovered is actually it's about the partnerships that you build around that. When we're trying to change practice or policy, when we're trying to improve the world, it's not about information. Information is just this kind of static asset. It doesn't actually drive change. What drives change is relationships. And it's by building partnerships around these living evidence projects with the people who can then use that information to, to improve mental health services, to improve understanding, to improve research. That's the really exciting opportunity, and I think GALENOS is doing that. The other thing that is unique about GALENOS is this is for the first time a major living systematic review project that is focused on research. So how can we use this dynamic, trustworthy understanding of research to improve the way we do research in that particular field? And I think in mental health, we've had increasing amount of investment, but we're not seeing that translate into real benefits yet for people with mental health conditions. And so I think in investing in this project is really looking at the way that we can use this model to improve the actual research that is being undertaken in mental health around the world. And I think that's incredibly exciting.